What's up, guys? It's Brian, and today I'm going to do my best to try to explain some of the more basic menu options that you have here in VirtualBox. I am by no means an expert, but this should help some of you get your first machine going and have at least a little idea of what you can do with it and how you can configure it. Well, let's get going. All right, first of all, we got General here. Under the Basic tab, you're going to find the descriptive sort of um, options for your virtual machine. You have your name that you can change it to whatever you like, although I'd suggest that you leave it something that describes the operating system that you're using just so you can keep everything organized. You also have your distributor and the actual distribution of the operating system for your machine here. You can change these. I don't think it makes a lot of difference if you change them after the operating system has been installed. I think these two are more or less for setting up the machine. Under Advanced, you got your snapshot folder, and this is going to be where any snapshots of your virtual machine are saved. You can change the file location if you like. A snapshot is going to be exactly what it says, a snapshot of a specific moment in time of your virtual machine. Example would be before a patch, so that if the patch ends up freaking out your virtual machine, you can always reset it. You have clipboard options. You can copy and paste from your host to your guest, from your guest to your host, and bidirectional. You can also drag and drop files the same way from host to guest and bidirectional. Under description, this gives you a place to give some info about the machine you're running in case um, you have 1,000 of them and you come back and can't remember which one is which or how you had it set up. You can um, type any sort of description that you need in this box provided. For encryption, this is going to enable encryption for the file that houses your virtual machine, basically. So if you enable encryption, you have a couple of different options here, and you can also set up a password for that. Okay, under your System tab, you're going to have some of your options that set up the hardware settings for your virtual machine. Your virtual hardware settings. That seems strange to say. First, we're going to have your base memory here, and this is where you allocate physical memory to be run with your virtual machine. What you need to keep in mind, though, is that your physical machine will also need some memory, so don't go too crazy here. You're going to have the option to set up a boot order, just as you would in your BIOS or UEFI, and with these options, you can use the arrow keys to change the order. You can disable a specific drive by removing the check mark in the box there. For chipset, the default is going to be PIIX3, but there are some newer operating systems that don't recognize this chipset, and they're going to use the ICH9. Apple is one of those that I can think of off the top of my head, but if you're not sure, leave it where the default is. You're going to have some pointing device options here. USB tablet's the one that I'm going to choose right here. For extended options, if you're not sure about these, then don't check these boxes. Enable EFI is not exactly what it sounds like. There's only going to be certain operating systems that will be able to use this. And for the UTC time, um, there'll be certain operating systems that only um, were meant to run with UTC time, such as Unix. For processors, this is where you dedicate physical cores to your virtual machine. And here again, you're going to want to keep a couple of cores left over, at least for your physical machine. For acceleration, um, these checkboxes here try to make use of some of the settings, or not settings, but some of the capabilities of your processor. So if you're not sure about these settings, I would leave these set to where they are. For display settings, you're able to allot the amount of video memory that your machine will have allocated, as well as how many monitors and the scale factor. You want to enable any hardware acceleration that you have capable on your physical machine. Remote displays. This is for if you're going to have a remote server and um, allows for a remote display. Video capture, this is where you can actually capture the screen on your virtual machine. And these settings are the file path and frame size for that. All right, under storage settings here, you're going to have the option to add and take away a disk and optical drives. You also have some newer controller settings here. For audio, this is going to enable or disable audio from your virtual machine. Network, I'm going to make a separate video just on the network settings, but you have different network configurations here that will allow your virtual machine to be sandboxed or um, play on the internet or interact with other uh, physical machines that are on your physical network. Serial ports, you can enable and disable serial ports here. USB, you got different USB controllers. Shared folders, this allows you to share files between your guest and your host your guest and your host machine, as well as other guest machines that are running on your host computer. Under user interface here, you get a couple of different options to configure the way that your window is going to look for your virtual machine. Some of the other settings you're going to have here under machine tools, you have a details and snapshot option. For details, this will give you an idea of all of your settings that you have on a particular machine at a glance. And then for snapshots, this is where you're able to take a snapshot of a particular machine um, at a particular moment in time. With this, you can enter some properties, a description, whatever you like. Also, you'll have the option to delete and restore certain snapshots, as well as you can clone the machine here. Now, whenever you clone, if you plan on running the machines at the same time with different MAC addresses, you're going to want to reinitialize the MAC address for all network cards. And because otherwise, what you're going to have is two machines that are exact copies of each other that are running with the same network sort of parameters. Under global options, you have the virtual media manager that gives you some access to the actual files for the hard disk of your virtual machine, where you can move them, you can copy them, you can release, and you can set properties for them. It also gives you options to copy, refresh whatever the actual image files and floppy disk if you have any. Here also under global settings, you can set up your host network manager, which lets you manually configure the adapter for the host network with the settings that you choose, as well as the DHCP settings. All right, so that's been this video with some uh, moderate VirtualBox for Dummies. I hope you learned a little bit, and look for more videos to come. Until the next one, take care.